Welcome to Wellness Waves on a Wednesday, your monthly dive into the world of health and wellness. Hosted by Donovan, Broussard, and Tulli, Bennett of City Club at River Ranch, Wellness Waves brings you closer to living your healthiest life. Join us as we explore insightful conversations with special guests, all aimed at empowering your wellness journey. So grab your headphones and get ready to ride the waves of wellness with Donovan and Tulli.
Hello and welcome to Wellness Waves on a Wednesday. I'm Donovan Broussard, General Manager of City Club at River Ranch, and I'm here with Tulli Bennett, Membership Director, and our special guest, Tanya Campbell, who's an integrative nutrition health coach, and we're here to talk about wellness. Tulli, why don't you start us off?
Awesome. This is so exciting. We all share some backgrounds with health. Mine a little different than the two of yours. I consider myself to be the unfortunate. I did not have the health issues that you guys had. Just more of, as a child, an upbringing of parents' influence, the love of sports. So thought that I was really living a healthy life until I met you. Thanks, Tanya.
The expert.
And and Donovan also had a similar experience as you did, that made you make that huge transition in your life. Huge. And so that's why I say you were, in a way, more fortunate, right? Because of having those ailments that drove you to make those changes. Right. And so now I'm just the lucky one that is learning from you and hopefully can share this knowledge with our members as I will be learning as well. Great. And so who would like to share their testimony first? Donovan?
Sure. So I guess around 3 years ago, I was having some GI issues.
There you go. That's good enough.
Had some GI issues. So my dad was, he was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, and it was pretty bad for a couple of years and didn't really know what was going on, and ultimately lost his colon. So he had to get ostomy bag. I started having symptoms about 3 years ago. I'd stopped drinking for about 7 years at that time, and I thought that would kind of clear up my issues. It didn't, because I was still eating highly inflammatory foods and processed foods and diet soft drinks and you name it. Thought I was living kind of healthier, but I really wasn't, because I was still taking in sugars and stuff like that. So I had some really bad issues. I was sick for about 4 to 5 months, and I couldn't get into a doctor for a while. And when I finally got in, we did the colonoscopy, and it came back as ulcerative colitis. So, of course, they want to go with biologics and starts putting on different types of medicine and steroids. So I tried that for about 2 weeks, and it was just absolutely miserable, the side effects. I mean, made it worse, in my opinion. So I started doing a bunch of research and started finding these groups on different sites and just started learning myself and created my own diet, created my own supplement plan. And from there, I was able to come out of a flare just by using bone broth and stuff like that. So it was
amazing.
Took me about 10 days to get out the flare. I probably lost about 22 pounds at that point.
Yeah.
10
days with a diet change?
10 days of like no solid foods, just pretty much bone
And you
broth.
saw a difference?
Oh, it got me out the flare. Then I slowly started incorporating different types of food and whole foods and like oatmeal and stuff like that. And I just started building my diet around whole foods and non-processed foods. And my wife's the same way. So we kind of do it together. And I mean, I haven't had a flare up yet. So it's been 2.5 years, been in remission. Yeah. Just from changing the way you eat and changing your lifestyle, and also incorporated probably about 2.5 hours of cardio a day, which was, I read a lot, was a big factor in kind of curbing that, the flares and stuff like that. And so it seemed to work for me. And I don't know how what's your story, Tanya, but we'd love to hear it.
Mine goes back a little bit further. So I was the kid with a lot of allergies, little asthma, things like that. I grew up in a small little farming town and around a lot of pesticides. Didn't realize the effects of that. But my mom cooked what we considered very healthy. My grandfather had a huge garden right outside of our back door. So we ate a lot of fresh vegetables, fruits, vegetables, meats, as clean as you can get them in Bunkie back in the day. And then I went to college and really went off the rails with diet like everybody does. In Bunkie, there's not many places to eat out. And grab fast food, but in Baton Rouge at LSU, there was pizza by delivery, all the things. So, and then went to graduate school. And after graduate school, I'm probably in my early 30s, I started having some pretty severe recurring infections that were, what I didn't know at the time, was very sugar driven. Well, I lived on sugar. I ate sugar morning, noon, and night. I would oftentimes opt to just not even have like meat, vegetables, a typical dinner, and just have dessert. Or I would get through my dinner just to get to the dessert, right? I ate Hershey bar every day. So much ice cream, it was just, I loved sugar. So I tried all the conventional medicine like you did, and it just got worse. Now, in my early 20s, I was pre-diabetic because I mentioned I really like sugar. So I didn't care. I was 100 pounds soaking wet, and didn't really have any major symptoms of that. Just, my numbers were not good. Mm-hmm. Didn't care, kept eating the sugar. So early 30s, started having these chronic infections. And then a few years later, I had my children. And I started looking into organic and things like that, but only because I didn't want to give my baby, any more chemicals than he had to have, but really didn't understand or know anything a whole lot more than just chemicals as far as organic food was concerned. And I had my second child right after my first one, and he had so many issues, severe eczema, no digestive function whatsoever. He couldn't digest fats and proteins. So, he threw up my breast milk. He threw up almost everything that went into his body. He was miserable. He had asthma. And so that's where I did like you. I started my own research, and lo and behold, the only thing I could do other than pump him full of steroids all the time and continue to just put the biologics in me that were never working anyway, was radical diet change. So I threw all the Hershey bars out of the house and just radically changed the diet. Learned about genetically modified foods and glyphosate and all the things. And so that's where my journey really began with food. It had started a few years before that, just trying to look at other options for my healing, but that's when it really began. Not so much for me, but to heal my children.
Tanya, can you go back to glyphosate and tell me exactly what that is? Because I'm hearing this word a lot with almonds and almond flour, and I am very upset because I'm a big almond flour guy. Yeah.
So, almond flour is very hard to find organic. I do use it sometimes, but not a lot. Glyphosate. Glyphosate is the name. It is the main ingredient in the chemical Roundup, and it is sprayed ubiquitously in our environment. Pretty bad thing, in my opinion. It is extremely disruptive to the gut lining. The way that it works is it kind of blows up the guts of the insects that eat it. But somehow the powers that be were able to be convinced that we have a different pathway than insects, so we should be fine having this poison in our bodies. Well, we're not, because of course we have another pathway that glyphosate travels through, and then it literally punches holes in the lining of the gut, and then you end up with exactly the problems you were just describing that you were dealing with. So the one way to hopefully avoid the most glyphosate is by eating certified organic food, or by a farmer who's not necessarily certified organic, but they do not spray glyphosate or the other more toxic chemicals on their food, because it is everywhere in the environment. It's so prevalent in our environment that it even exists in rainwater. So you're going to always have maybe minute traces of it, but to really avoid that direct spraying, you got to eat organic. The standards are they cannot spray glyphosate on organic produce.
Are there any places where it's banned, like in other countries?
Oh, these things are banned in yes, other countries, but we tend to like our chemicals for some reason. Same thing with red dye, blue dye, yellow dye. Right. Even something, things that exist in like a Triscuit or a wheat thin, banned in other countries. Well,
you seem to see seed oils and everything.
Seed oils are in everything. And, yesterday I was with a friend and we spent a couple of hours at Drug Emporium, and her daughter's having a lot of issues right now. And so we were comparing labels, and there would be one item organic, and then we would compare it to the other. She would say, well, this one's $2.50 and this one's $4.50 and why? And I said, well, I'm going to show you. And so we turned the labels around and we read, and the difference would be organic virgin olive oil, and then this cheaper one would be organic canola oil.
Or palm oil, or sunflower
All of that.
oil,
Right. Sunflower oil. Yes.
vegetable oil.
So that's
Vegetable
a little bit of the
yes.
challenge of a lot of people.
Yes.
But when, you can educate and become
Yes.
knowledgeable and know why those $2 make such a huge difference.
Right. I tell people you can spend it now on your food, or you can spend it later
On
in
your
the
medical
the doctor's office,
Right.
or on,
Right.
on and trying to, fix yourself,
Right.
Sure.
this ailment or that ailment. Going back to my testimony, pretty much every single, and I had a lot of respiratory allergies. I had asthma as a kid, like exercise-induced asthma. All of my issues went away in my home, and my children's too, like Richard's extreme eczema that kept us both up at night. If he had a taste, if someone decided behind my back they were going to give him something, then he and I were up all night scratching those little legs. His eczema went away. His digestive function, reversed,
Wow.
healed. The asthma went away. He had another life-threatening issue that seemed to just disappear too at the time. So
And all healed through food.
all healed through food, and not to take away from proper supplementation. I say
Sure.
proper because you really need to make sure it's proper. What's good for one person is not good for another. So you
Right.
don't want to just like read an article.
Right.
Maybe I should go get this.
Individualized.
Individualized. Yes. We're all unique individuals. So, I've seen the power of food as medicine, and I believe in it with everything in me. And it's what led me here to my new career.
Right.
I think what's so eye-opening at this time is how many doctors are starting to,
Yes.
make changes in their regular practices and what they were taught in medical school.
Right.
And, that's amazing. Don't you treat some doctors?
Well, unless I am a licensed occupational therapist, and when working in that arena, I can treat. But as a certified integrative nutrition health coach, I can't treat anybody. But I can educate, and so I have worked with. Yes, I've worked with doctors who have used my services with their clients. Where they make referrals to.
What are you doing to my clients that are making such a huge difference that I couldn't do?
Yes, I have had doctors' wives and actually doctors themselves come to me and and some of the things I talk about. It's interesting to me that they've never even heard about. They have no idea what it is I'm talking about, and not necessarily with food, but there's.
I still think there's a long path ahead to convince these
They're
doctors.
huge. And I'll tell you what's one of the worst things is their hands are tied. Like, even if they start to learn, which I'm seeing so many more do now, what they can actually do in their practice, unless they get out and go into something like MDVIP or something like that, where you have more freedom and flexibility. Sure. When you're working for a conglomerate or
Big pharma,
you're limited. Their hands are tied. Right. Even if they know better, they're bound to what the protocol of that particular place
to this
is.
day, there are doctors that tell me you are not cured by food and exercise. It just went away. They refuse to believe that I cured it by getting off the medicine myself, doing my own research.
Right.
These are doctors I trust and I know. They will tell me, no, you didn't do that. That's impossible. That does not happen. It just went away. You're one of the lucky ones.
Right. I'll tell you
It's not coincidence.
a little story. I have an uncle who was very big inspiration to me when I started this journey. He's the only person that I knew that had used food to heal himself. He had a second round of breast cancer. He was a federal judge here in town and was diagnosed with breast cancer, did all the conventional treatments and, was in remission. And then a couple of years later, it came back with a vengeance and he was given 3 months to live. It was terminal. Well, this was probably 20-something years ago. He's alive today with not a trace of cancer in his body. And he went the the natural route, and he used food and supplements.
Wow.
And he did do a little chemotherapy, but they told him right away, like they could do chemotherapy, but it couldn't help. With chemotherapy, they gave him 3 months to live. That's like 6 weeks, right?
Right.
So, he completely reversed second round of cancer, breast cancer with food.
We're also not saying, disregarding that there are some situations where medicine is necessary.
Oh, absolutely. And he used a combination of the two, but the outcome would have been with just conventional medicine, he would not be here today.
Right.
Unless it was an act of God.
Well, what I'm noticing with the doctors is when they're prescribing these biologics is that's all they're prescribing. They don't want to talk about diet. They don't want to talk about exercise.
Most.
Whatever new drugs out at the time is what they're pushing, and they're pushing it hard.
Yes. And they're learning from the pharmaceutical company about that drug, which, is kind of eye-opening and scary, in its own right. And I always say if the two could just merge, there are a lot of areas in the country where that is happening a lot. Like you'll find health coaches in doctors' offices in other parts of the country all the time. And merging those two, some doctors actually have a kitchen, and as a requirement of part of their protocol, when the patients come in, they all have to see a health coach in the kitchen.
Right.
And that to me is amazing. I would love to see that in one office in Louisiana, in our area.
And Tanya, what would be some good resources that you might suggest? I know I read parts of Good Sense. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Some resources where people listening to the podcast are really ready to make that change and learn a little more about what we're talking about.
Right. So there's books are a dime a dozen. There's a book promoting keto. There's a book talking against keto. Same thing with all the different, fad type diets. What I would say is get with somebody who's extremely familiar with nutrition and learn from them about your own individual issues and why this diet would be better than this diet for you, because there's a lot of diets out there. I'm with you, Donovan, at the core, it's just eat real food.
Right.
I say it all the time, eat real food. And real food isn't food that's been sprayed with 10 tons of glyphosate. It's not genetically modified.
Doesn't have 50 ingredients on the label.
It doesn't have 50 ingredients on the label, right? It's typically not in a box unless it's like you mentioned, oatmeal.
It can spoil.
I have oatmeal in my house. It's organic, sprouted, gluten-free, right? And it's one ingredient in a package.
Right.
That's not what I'm talking about as far as in a box.
Sure.
But yeah, minimal ingredients.
Yes. So speaking with you, I came to realize where your job comes in, because it's almost impossible to it must have taken y'all so much time to really find out all the details and the information, where if you have someone like yourself who has it already and available, it's worth.
Yeah. I was flying by the seat of my pants. I can tell you that. This was nearing 20 years ago. There was no TikTok or Instagram, Facebook videos, and I do say that was a blessing. It's kind of like you said, it was fortunate that you, or unfortunate that you didn't have a health issue to have to change. It was a blessing to not have all that information thrown at me, because all I could do was learn one step at a time, and it was baby steps, and it stuck because it was just a slow process.
Right.
That became a lifestyle. That's very tough to do that now, because people are, there are people watching health videos all the time that don't change a thing about their health, right? But there's so much information out there, and it was very difficult to find that almost 20 years ago. It was a tedious process.
It's such American culture to get on these medications and not change your diet.
Right.
They want to eat whatever they want to eat. Right? They want to eat pizza. They want to eat hamburgers, even though they have ulcerative colitis, but they're going to mask it with the Humira or whatever big drug there is out at the time.
Right.
So it might not affect your ulcerative colitis, but now you're having diabetes or you're having heart issues. So it's just a revolving circle.
Right. It's like medicine, just a Band-Aid.
Right.
It's just gonna.
It's exactly. It's all it is. A Band-Aid.
And it seems like the body would just become immune to most of it.
Right.
Eventually.
Yeah. It's there's when you suppress something, it's like stuffing. Something's going to pop out somewhere else, right? And that's kind of what is happening. But but then there's something else to fix that thing that just
Right.
popped out, right? And then something else will pop out.
Now you're on
There's
5
something else
medications.
exactly,
Side
exactly.
effects of all of that.
Exactly. Yeah, I it's not uncommon for me to have a 50, 60-year-old person on just a list of
Right.
pharmaceuticals. And, on that note, just real quickly, just a kind of shout out to my dad, if he's listening. But he's 80 years old, and he was on multiple medications. It was heart-related and some other areas too. And he came to me a couple of years ago, maybe 2 years ago now, and wanted to know, he took interest, and he's now on not a single pharmaceutical drug. He walks an hour or so a day, and I'm so proud of him because it is possible. 80 years old.
Absolutely, it's possible.
80 years old.
11 years ago, I was on 2 blood pressure medications and 1 cholesterol medication.
Yep.
3 medications at one time.
Yep.
I'm trying to work on my mom.
Yes.
She's 83. She struggles with neuropathy, blood pressure, and I just recently asked her, I'm like, "Are you ready?" It's a food change that you need that's going to really make the difference. At least it's worth a try. And she said, "I'm ready."
That's a tough age group to hit, too.
Oh,
that age group is kind of stuck in their ways. They're used to eating certain ways.
Yes.
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 It's a really tough age group to
Yes,
hit and convert.
And they had no other option like the internet to
Right.
what they heard. If it was a white coat that told, that's all they knew to do was to follow that advice
with information.
Yes. And so it's like a paradigm shift. It's
Right.
just, it's a whole different mindset that they have to adjust to. That we all, really,
Absolutely.
yeah.
It's starting to slowly come out, but like you said, I think it's gonna be a
The
while
trend. I mean,
before-
people are, they want to get healthier. You start
Right.
to see people's not smoking cigarettes as much, right?
Right.
They want to eat healthier. They're looking for healthier options. They're looking for healthier restaurants. I mean,
Yes.
And I think we can all agree everyone wants to be happy and healthy
Right.
and live long.
Yeah, longevity.
So, I mean, that kind of covers everyone.
People will ask me a lot of time. They're like, "Well, what do you want to do? Live to 100?" And I'm like, "Sure."
Yeah, why not?
Absolutely. I'm 56 years old with a 17 and 18-year-old, so I want to be around to play with my grandchildren for a while. But my response is, regardless of how old, I mean, my days are numbered, right? If you should lead the way I do,
Well, at least
and biblically, but right. And so whatever that day may be, I want to feel good, and I do. I'm 56. I feel worlds better than I did at 32 when I started experiencing this set of chronic infections. And that's what it's all about, is feeling good. I want to play tennis until I die. I want to play pickleball.
I have played with
Trophies in the video.
people well into their 70s.
Yes,
And
yes.
I ask them, say, okay, you're 75 years old and you're
Yes.
playing with guys half your age.
Yes.
They eat right.
Yes.
They exercise regularly. They play paddle sports.
Yep.
And these guys look good at 75.
Yes.
I mean, 5 years from later, I mean, it's still going to look good. So, I mean,
Yes.
yes, longevity's there if you do it right. I mean, it's
So good for the brain.
Yes.
So good for the brain.
And I know our main topic today
pickleball.
is,
No,
if it was up to you, it would be pickleball. Maybe another podcast, Donovan.
absolutely.
But in addition to the food, holistic health, and that's there's so much more than just the food. There's exercise. There's
Right.
your breathing, your thinking. Just trying to stay away from
Meditation.
negative. Meditation is huge.
Yes.
And of course, faith was always my favorite, even at a very young age, and that worked best for me. But even people that may not have been brought up with faith, meditation, any types of meditation and silence and, self-awareness, processing your thoughts and what's causing negative emotions, negative thoughts, and, the negative chemicals in your body when you're experiencing all this negativity.
Yeah. And in a natural cancer protocol, you're always going to find certain things. And releasing negative emotions is
Huge.
almost always there because it's so important. And
Well,
literally,
heard stress is the number one killer.
yes.
Well,
stress is
that's
huge.
Pretty
Yes.
much sums it up.
Yes. And, we've talked about this before. You can eat great all day long, but if you sit on your couch and watch TV all day, there's going to be some benefit, but you really need the whole picture. You
Right.
need to be out in the sunshine. You need to be at least at some part in the day, working on your breathing,
Sleeping.
proper sleep, hydration, all the things we talked about at the forum. It really is. It's the big picture. And that's why that big, long title I chose that particular program because actually the food that you eat was secondary. And all of the other things like your career, your joy, your spirituality, and all of those other areas are primary food. Because when all of that is intact and going well, you're more prone to choose a healthier thing to eat. Yeah.
Well, great information, Tanya. That was awesome. Yeah. And let's talk a little bit about the health forum you have coming up.
Yes, definitely. So we're going to have one of the doctors that are wanting to make the transition into focusing on finding the core of the issue and not just straight to medicine.
Yes. Well, keep your eyes open for that. And thank you very much, Tanya. And thank you, Tulli.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Sorry. Thank you.
We got a lot of great information today, and we look forward to many more podcasts, so more to come.
Thanks for joining us on Wellness Waves on a Wednesday. We hope you found your inspiration and insights to enhance your wellness journey. Don't forget to subscribe and join Donovan Broussard and Tulli Bennett next month for more engaging discussions. Stay healthy and keep riding the waves of wellness.